I'm going to die one day. And, that's fine. Everyone does. I'll try not to. See if I can make it to the 2100 era. I'd have to hit a ripe old age of 105. And I'm not exactly the healthiest person in the world, so that might be a struggle, but we're gonna aim for it. I want to see the 2100 era. But death is a certainty. And because of that, I already have a project called the Tombstone Project, which is basically memoirs written in real time, which I've kind of been neglecting lately. But I figure it might be nice to have an audio counterpart to the Tombstone Project. Well, it doesn't have to be a counterpart, it can be part of it. I listen to a podcaster called Scott Johnson, and he has a thing he calls Diary of a Cartoonist, which is like a solo podcast series where he talks about his life and what's going on and thoughts he has. And I figure, why not rip that off for myself? Because who knows, maybe you're listening to this in the 2100 era. Don't know why I keep calling it an era. Maybe you're listening to this in the 2100s and like, wow, my granddad, I'm probably not having kids, my granddad sure led a life of talking about himself, because let's face it, let's give an intro first. 27 years old, currently working at Tesco. Actually, maybe I was gonna, because I'm doing this publicly, I was considering omitting that. I might omit that in editing, I'm not sure yet. But yeah, currently working in retail. Not exactly living my life's ambitions. Maybe I'll get there one day. I have a few obstacles, mostly mental ones, in front of me. But yeah, I'm not going to give you my whole life story. Just a little snippet of where I am right now and what's been going on in my life lately. And one of the reasons I've been neglecting the Tombstone Project is because there's not much going on, if I'm being perfectly honest. I talked about how I talk about my life a lot already. That's because my primary hobby in terms of creativity is my YouTube channel, which you may very well be listening to this on, where I have a series called The Weekly Waypoint, where I talk about, oh, there's a fox! Sorry, I'm currently walking home from work at 12:30 at night. I just saw a fox dart across the road. That was nice. I like foxes. Anyway, also I'm a heavy breather, so apologies in advance. But what was I saying? Yeah, my YouTube series. I have a Weekly Waypoint series, which I've done currently, as of the time of talking, for, I think we're at 232 consecutive weeks, without fail. So when I can be stubborn about making something at a set time period, boy can I do it. Like, I have trouble sticking to things, but if I make it a real, thing in my brain, then I'm going to stick to it. I like to think I can stick to it. And the Weekly Waypoint can be proof of that. I'm going to try and not catch my breath too much. Maybe I can edit some of that out. I don't know how much effort I'm putting into this yet. I might have forgotten about this by tomorrow morning. I've even put a few audio-only blog type things on this channel before, but they've never really had a cohesive series title to them. But the point is, I don't really know if YouTube's going to exist in the year 2100 or the year 2101. They might, 20 years from now, decide, you know what, it shouldn't be a free endeavour. Shit costs bandwidth. If you're not making us money, then you're out. They did already make a change to their terms of service, which sounded a bit threatening in that way. A few years ago, I remember. So I'll try not to only upload this to YouTube. But then the reason why the Tombstone Project is originally text only is because, who knows, you're about to learn I have a very cynical view of the future. Who knows if we will have working electronic technology in the future. If you are listening to this in the year 2100, then congratulations, you've survived. From where I'm standing in the year 2022, nothing seems very assured. And I guess that's worth talking about. I am quite anxious about global warming, about climate change or climate crisis, I guess would be the best way to say it. And how we are basically, we're not ignoring it, people are doing things, but it's not enough. And in the last few years, and maybe the last year or so, I've really hit this kind of like, and this probably isn't good for my mental state, but like feeling of certainty that sometime in the next 20 years it's all gonna fall apart and we won't have infrastructure. And you know, maybe I'm being dramatic, maybe it wasn't that bad in the end. I try not to think about it too much, but just in my bones, as I live, as I go through life, I can't shake this feeling anymore. I just can't shake this feeling that we're doomed. Oh no. Didn't this get cheerful? And it's to the point where last week I've never liked post-apocalyptic settings in games because I think they're too depressing, and movies and fiction in general, but I decided, you know what? Bethesda make a game called Skyrim, and I really enjoy that game. Don't worry, I'm going to sit down in a bus stop in a second. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, wow, no wonder he died at 60. Yeah, so Bethesda made a game called Skyrim. And it's like a fantasy RPG. Hopefully you know what that means in the year 2100. Oh, hello, bench. They also make a game series called Fallout. And it's very similar in terms of gameplay. I mean, it's different, you've got guns and shit, but in terms of a lot of design philosophies, it's very similar. So I've been trying to get into that, because I love me some Bethesda-made RPG, and I'm excited for their upcoming Starfield. I hope you didn't just, like, go, ooh. Hopefully it was good. I mean, most people who will ever listen to this are probably listening to this like the day it comes out, so I don't know why I'm addressing some mystical future person, but, you know, it's all the more fun. And so I was like, yeah, solid, post-apocalyptic wasteland, let's walk around. And I love it. It's a really good game. It does the atmosphere of a post-apocalyptic wasteland really well, and not in like a depressing way, but in like a kind of beautiful way. A kind of sad, forlorn, beautiful way. And at the same time, I was reading a comic series called Spider-Man 2099, which takes place a year before you are listening to this, dear listener. And that's set in a cyberpunk dystopian future, which hopefully you are not currently living in. Don't worry, I think the climate crisis will get you before you get anywhere near that. Oh no. So that's like a post-apocalyptic setting and a dystopian future setting. And I started getting really bad dreams just about the future, just about living in these scenarios, mostly the post-apocalyptic one. And I realised, I think my psyche's a bit fucked at this point with my outlook on the future. So this kind of project where I talk into a audio tombstone of sorts, or let's say memorial, not memorial, memoir. Oh boy, that's a bit self-aggrandizing. Let's say that this... I'm walking again now. Prepare for more out-of-breath, Christian. Let's say that this project is more of like a, you know what? In the future, you'll be able to listen to this. In the year 2100, you'll be able to be like, wow, what was it like in the year 2022? Well, you may have heard of a war in Ukraine. It doesn't affect us personally, but I am very emotionally wrapped up in it, just because the murder of innocent people is never something to be overlooked. And also the threat of worldwide nuclear crisis again feeds into my anxiety, so that's fun. So hopefully that all worked out. I mean, by its very definition, it's already not worked out. But, you know, hopefully you're like, oh yeah, that thing, that lasted like a year. Hopefully that's your outlook on it from the future. But that's in my brain rattling around there somewhere too. Don't know how we got onto that topic. I've already forgotten, but still kind of during COVID. People like to think we're not, but we are. I'm kind of ill right now. I should do a COVID test. Very unethical of me to go to work without doing one. I feel very bad about myself and kind of not even thinking about that. If this were like 3 months prior even, I would definitely have thought about that. So there's that. Beating myself up about that too. Wow, Christian was Christian was in an interesting place in 2022, wasn't he? Don't worry. I've got plenty of time to get over it. Oh, and he died at 28. That's unfortunate that he said that. Do you see why this is fun to record? Anyway, enough of all the doom and gloom. We survived that. You're listening to this in the year 2100, obviously. One thing I want to talk about, because we are now in my favourite month of the year, October, spooky season. We used to have this thing called Halloween. I'm going to be really pissed off if it stops being a thing ever in the future. But yeah, spooky season, but also it's autumn, and autumn is my favourite season. I can't really put my finger on why. I just fucking love it. And it's not like I'm a winter nut. It's not like I'm like, oh, I love it when it's cold. No, I think I prefer summer out of winter and summer, but just like evening's my favourite time of day, autumn's my favourite time of year. It all kind of adds up into a neat little bow. But I bring it up because we're getting to the point where we start to turn back and look on how our year's gone. And I think personally, how this year is going to be defined for me is anxiety. We've already covered one portion of that, but I had a bit of a health scare at the beginning of the year, and it was really fucking nothing, by the way. Sorry, my app just started recording lots of white noise, so I think that was the wind, so I had to pause. But basically, at the start of the year, I developed acid reflux. In fact, not at the start of this year, but at the very end of last year at Christmas. I remember specifically I was playing a dungeon in Final Fantasy XIV, and I used to drink, not drink, I'm teetotal, but in terms of like Pepsi Max, my favourite drink, right, I used to drink, and this sounds awful because it was, somewhere between 10 to 16 litres a week, just because I liked it, because the ingredients list was like, hey, 0% of lots of things. So I was like, I mean, I know it's not healthy. There's probably something in there that's going to damage me, and turns out it did. I mean, I don't even know if it did, but I'm assuming it did. But yeah, for years, I would drink between 10 to 16 litres of Pepsi Max a week while playing video games. And, you know, I walk 45 minutes to work and back 4 to 5 times a week, depending on how many hours I've got that week. So I do get out and quote-unquote exercise, but that probably wasn't the best move. And so I think that fucked up my body, because now I can't drink Pepsi Max without getting massive heartburn. And I was like, oh my god, heart disease, I'm dying. So got my heart checked out, heart's fine. But basically, I've got acid reflux, and it's not the worst acid reflux in the world. I've read up of accounts of people who like basically puke up in their mouths in the middle of a night. It's super unfortunate for them. I hope mine never gets that bad. Basically, I just get the occasional acidic burp, but I am prone to heartburn, and as someone who had literally never had heartburn in my life until that moment, I thought, this is it. I've got heart disease, my heart's exploding, I'm dying in this moment. To try and make myself sound less paranoid, I must, emphasise, when I first got it, I had it really bad for, a week. And, even after I cut out drinking Pepsi Max, I was before I really knew what it was, people were yeah, it sounds like heartburn, but, doubts. And, so I was really scared. And then the reason it affected my entire year is because even when a doctor told me it was heartburn, I still, because I didn't understand exactly what was triggering it, even though I was given a list of triggers, I was drinking Lucozade Sport at work, and I thought because it wasn't a fizzy drink I should have been fine. But Lucozade Sport is a trigger of acid reflux and heartburn for those of us affected, and so I just kind of had it in the background all the time, and I was getting really concerned. But when I figured out, oh, this is one of my triggers, and I stopped drinking it 5 times a week, and I feel perfectly fine when I don't have it. So, stupid as it is, well, I guess any therapist would tell me not to beat myself up about it, but I just want to make a note of it because, while I could have, if I'd spoken to more people about it, if I had understood more about it, I could have had it impact less of my year. And you could probably say I might have some mental health problems with anxiety as well, which I need to get checked out. Hey, if you're listening to this in the 2100s, you might be like, oh yeah, Christian definitely had anxiety problems. He talked about them at a later date. I wouldn't be surprised. But it unfortunately has made a backdrop of anxiety throughout. I would say a little over half of a year. So I just felt like mentioning that. A, because the more you talk about something like this, one of the things that made me so anxious about it was so many people have this, but nobody talks about it because it's like people who don't have whatever I have in terms of anxiety, it's not as big of an issue for them. They're just like, oh, I know what this is and I know how to treat it. I'm the same now, but getting to that point for me, I could really have used more people talking about this kind of thing publicly. So that's one of the reasons I'm talking about it. The other reason is, if this is a diary talking about how my life has gone, not going to give you my full life story, but recently, that is probably the most, accurate summation of something that's been going on in my life lately. But I would say we've come to a point where that's not really something that causes me anxiety anymore. That's not really something that I think about a lot anymore. I've actually been testing out, like, what does and doesn't give me heartburn, and when I find something that does give me heartburn, I don't freak out about it anymore. But it turns out I can drink like lemonade and shit, so fizzy drinks aren't entirely off the table like I thought they were. Hurrah! But I'm sure everyone finds this as they age, but adjusting from a life where you're almost invincible in terms of just what you can eat and drink and do, versus adjusting to a life where you have to look at something you previously enjoyed and recognise I can't have that anymore. That's something that took a little adjusting to. It doesn't bum me out anymore, but it definitely did early on. But yeah, I definitely have people pushing me to try and get therapy for anxiety. I don't know why it makes me laugh saying it out loud. But here's my excuse for why I haven't gone for it. I'm anxious about going for it. Go figure. I think my parents probably aren't pleased with me because I sat down and talked to them about all of this months and months and months ago. And I was very determined. I was like, what I'm going to do when the doctors open up on Monday, I'm going to call them up, going to get help. And they were like, wow, that's awesome, Christian. You are taking steps to improve your life. And then I didn't do it. And they were gently prodding me to do it for a while afterwards. And I still haven't. So I'm sure they're more than pleased with me about that. But hey, let's not get into oversharing too much. They're good people. And yeah, that's it. That's the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment if you're listening to this in real time, or if this is being published in the year 2100. Feel free to leave a comment. I won't be able to see it. I'll probably be dead. Maybe I'll be 105. Maybe I'll record a new episode. I'll be like, oh yes, I remember the heartburn thing. I probably won't be with it. I probably won't be able to talk. But hey, if I outlive the Queen, the Queen died, by the way, the other day. That's a moment in history for you to kind of sync this up with, you 2100ers. The Queen died, long lived the King, because, I mean, he's already lived a long time, hasn't he? Yeah, okay, let's not get too much into that. Thank you for listening. I don't know how often I'm going to do these. I literally have no time period in my head. There might be another one tomorrow. There might be another one in a month. Maybe I'll do these yearly. Who knows? Thank you, see you next time.